with Heart. I'm Dominique, and today we are going to be transforming thrifted picture frames into boho art. So the materials that we're going to need for today are a pair of scissors and 4 different colored paints. So the paints we'll be using today are antique white, black, king's gold, and terracotta. We will also be using tape to hold down our materials, an oil-based white paint marker, and 3 picture frames of any size. You can choose those. And then lastly, we'll be using a circular object. It doesn't matter what it is, but for today, we are going to be using a plant saucer. So to begin, we're going to start with our largest frame. In addition to the materials, we'll also need a canvas-like material. So this can be found at any craft store, and it's optional. And if you don't want to use this, you can also just use your normal paper. So to begin with, since this material comes in a roll, it often doesn't stay flat, so that's where our tape comes in. We're just going to tape it down. And this will help keep it in place while we paint it. So the color that we're using first is terracotta, and you can use whatever size brush, but for this it'd be easier to use a bigger brush just because we're covering a larger surface area. And then through this, you're just gonna put it on. You can choose to do the whole thing or just make any kind of pattern you want. It's completely up to you. But we're gonna paint this all until it is fully covered. So that's the first step. After it is fully covered, it will look something like this. So this is it already dried. And after we've done this, we've completed the step for the first piece of art. Our next step will be to grab our picture frame. And with this, we are going to be using our oil-based paint marker to draw a design. Now, you can do whatever design you want, but it does help if you go ahead and get paper underneath, trace the design onto the paper, and then place the paper underneath. So our paper, let me grab that real quick, has a design on it, and we're just going to place it underneath the frame, kind of as a guide. And then one thing to remember when using paint markers, it's always best to shake them beforehand. So we're going to do that real quick. And then we're going to trace our design. After we've traced our design onto the glass with the paint marker, we're going to insert the orange piece of canvas-like paper, into the frame, and then put the backing. And then you have your art drawn on the glass and then your paper right behind it, and that gives you this beautiful art. Okay, now that we have our first piece of art done, we're going to do the exact same thing with our next frame, as in we're going to cut out the size of canvas-like paper to match the frame size, and then we're going to tape it on the table just so it doesn't roll. So we're going for an arch with almost like a sun or like a circular object on top. So to do the arches, what we're first going to do is grab your black, and you're going to create 2 parallel lines of whichever height you would like. They don't have to be perfectly straight. Honestly, imperfection provides a little bit of character with these paintings. So don't stress about that too much. So you'll create your 2 black lines. You might have to go over them a few times just to get it covered all the way. And then after you have your 2 parallel lines, you're going to get it at one end, curve your brush, turn it, and that gives you that arch like shape. So I usually start with doing all of my arches first and then going back and fixing whatever imperfections, well, not so much imperfections, but just any stray black marks to get it the way you would like. So after you've done the first one, you're going to repeat the process until you have as many arches as you'd like. I usually go for 3 or 4, so we're going to repeat that process. And then connect it again. And now you have your second arch. We'll do one more and then we'll go on to our next step. Okay, so now that we have that done, this is where our circular objects comes into place. Like I said, we're using a plant saucer in this situation, but you can use any object that's available to you. So what I do is I put the circular object right above the center of your arches, and then just grab a pencil and trace it. From there, you use your King's Gold paint, which is just a bit of a darker yellow, and fill this circle. And you continue to do that until you can't really see any more white spaces. And after that, you will get something that looks like this. Process, and since this last frame is the same size as the one before, we cut the exact same size of canvas like paper and taped it on the table to prevent rolling. So the saucer comes into play again. So what I did was I used a Sharpie and just marked off the halfway points. This is 4 inches in diameter for reference. Then we're going to place it on there on our canvas and just trace semicircles. We're gonna trace 4 semicircles with 2 of them facing to the right, 2 of them facing to the left. Okay, and after that is complete, we're going to use all 4 of our colors to just shade in all of these. So what I did, the color coding I used, was I did black on this first one. And then from there, I used the King's Gold. We're going to do the terracotta next. And then our antique white. If this color blends in too much with the canvas, something that helps is just adding a drop of brown paint just to darken up the color a little bit. And after that is complete, it'll look like this. It's kind of hard to see, as you can tell with it rolled, but whichever way you want to hang your frames, you can do it horizontally or vertically. And after you've framed all the art, it'll look something like this. You can choose whichever frames you'd like, paint them just to match your decor. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.